Today, Ukrainian forces successfully neutralized a critical Russian S-300 air defense complex that was responsible for securing the northern approach to Moscow. The engagement was a multi-domain assault, which began with the use of sophisticated electronic warfare to blind Russian sensor capabilities. This was followed by a main strike, utilizing high-value munitions, including Storm Shadow cruise missiles, each valued at approximately $2.5 million. A subsequent and synchronized ground attack successfully neutralized the command bunker, effectively disabling the entire site. Executed in less than 90 minutes, the strike not only destroyed a key defensive asset, but also revealed a significant vulnerability in Russia's air defense shield around the capital, challenging its perception of forward security. The operation commenced at 4:39 a.m. with what was determined to be a Russian probe, a Sukhoi Su-24M Fencer tactical bomber, flying at an exceptionally low altitude to the northeast of the Dolgoprudny district, performed a high-speed pass over the treetops. The aircraft launched two Kh-31P anti-radiation missiles, which are specifically designed to target radar emissions. While these missiles were aimed toward Ukrainian defensive positions near Kharkiv, their primary purpose was assessed as a provocation, intended to compel Ukrainian air defense radars to activate and thereby reveal their locations. Within minutes, Ukrainian reconnaissance confirmed the likely objective of this probe, a newly activated S-300 air defense battery, which had just become operational approximately 15 miles north of Moscow. This Russian installation, camouflaged with radar decoys, was positioned to create overlapping fields of fire, aiming to completely secure the airspace in that sector. This initial Russian maneuver was not a routine patrol, but a calculated move designed to assert air dominance and map out Ukrainian electronic countermeasures. The Ukrainian response was immediate and methodical, suggesting that the Russian probe had been anticipated. Instead of activating their own high-power search radars and exposing their positions, Ukrainian forces launched a sophisticated electronic counter-offensive. This was designed to deceive and dismantle the Russian network before any physical strike was initiated. From dispersed launch sites within the wooded terrain of the Chernihiv region, 3 reconnaissance drones, designated Laika 1000, were deployed. These drones maintained a low and slow flight profile, using an erratic flight path that mimicked the movement of bird flocks, a tactic employed to conceal their electronic signature from Russian Doppler radar systems. Their mission was not visual surveillance, but signals intelligence. The drones were tasked with provoking the Russian air defense radars into activation, which would allow the Ukrainian command to map the electronic order of battle surrounding the Dolgoprudny S-300 site in real time. As the drones relayed data on active radar emissions, the second phase of the air operation commenced. Far above, at an altitude of 42,000 feet, a pair of Ukrainian Su-24M bombers maneuvered into a strike position. They released several Storm Shadow cruise missiles, long-range, precision-guided munitions with a value of around $2.5 million each. These missiles were pre-programmed with flight paths that utilized terrain-following radar, allowing them to navigate through valleys and below ridgelines to minimize their exposure to detection. Their targets were not the primary S-300 launchers themselves, but the critical support infrastructure, secondary radar installations, and command and control repeaters that formed a protective ring around the main battery. Just 30 seconds after launch, 2 radar sites located north of Khimki went offline. Simultaneously, a low-level electronic assault was initiated. Mi-17 utility helicopters, flying nap of the Earth merely 30 feet above the ground, approached from a frozen canal to the west of the target area. From their cargo bays, they dispensed a swarm of miniature jamming drones. These small, unmanned systems, each equipped with wideband emitters, generated a dense, 2-mile-wide field of electromagnetic interference. This radio fog effectively blinded the short to medium-range Russian air defense systems, such as the Pantsir S-1 and Buk M3 batteries. Their targeting systems began to fail as they lost connection to the central command network. To complete the electronic isolation of the battlefield, Ukrainian electronic warfare vehicles, positioned 10 miles to the west, fired directional energy bursts. This surgical attack was designed to overload and disable Russian target acquisition relays without creating a broad electronic signature that could be traced back to its origin. The cumulative effect of these actions was the systematic dismantling of the Russian sensor network. Russia's advanced missile systems were left to contend with false signals and ghost targets, effectively blinded before the ground assault had even started. With the Russian radar and communications network significantly degraded, the Ukrainian ground offensive was set in motion. Approximately 10 miles northwest of the S-300 site, a contingent of M1A1 Abrams main battle tanks emerged from a disused subterranean service tunnel, a remnant of Soviet-era infrastructure. These tanks had been heavily modified with reactive armor blocks and thermal dampening skirts to reduce their infrared signature. Guided by encrypted data uplinks from the Leica drones still loitering overhead, their 120mm smoothbore cannons were already oriented towards their objectives before the tanks had fully exited the tunnel entrance. This was a synchronized assault, not merely an isolated armored push. From the southeast, a convoy of Rochelle Senator armored personnel carriers advanced through a collapsed utility checkpoint. These vehicles transported specialized teams, including squads equipped with NLAW anti-tank guided missiles and combat engineering units trained for rapid structural breaching and demolitions. Remote weapon stations mounted on the Senator vehicles provided suppressive fire against potential defensive positions that had been identified by thermal imaging into the adjacent tree line. The third vector of the attack originated from the Western Forest, where a swarm of low-profile, tracked unmanned ground vehicles, or UGVs, with the call sign Leopard, advanced under the forest canopy. These compact machines, standing less than 3 feet tall, were armed with tandem-shaped charges designed for anti-armor operations. Their mission was to flank an outer weapons checkpoint by exploiting terrain gaps previously mapped by reconnaissance drones, bypassing obstacles like razor wire. The path ahead was known to be mined, a threat that was addressed by specialized mine-clearing robots. These six-legged platforms utilized low-frequency pulse emitters to neutralize mines by overloading their proximity triggers with pinpoint electromagnetic bursts, a method that avoided detonation and thus preserved the element of surprise. Infantry squads followed closely behind, their movements synchronized to the second. This coordinated, three-pronged advance was not a frontal assault, but a calculated maneuver designed to breach the outer perimeter and establish a foothold for the next phase of the operation. With the outer perimeter of the Dolgoprudny complex breached, the main objective of the operation began: the neutralization of the S-300's command and control infrastructure. A platoon of Ukrainian special forces advanced through a forgotten subterranean maintenance tunnel, using original Soviet-era blueprints for navigation. This route led them directly beneath an old railway line to the base of the S-300 command relay bunker, the nerve center responsible for synchronizing the entire site's radar and launch sequences. As the ground team moved into position, a diversionary action unfolded above. A fixed-wing UAV, circling at a high altitude 2 miles away, deployed sniper teams via tethered glide pods. These teams landed silently on rooftops and in other elevated positions overlooking the compound, surgically eliminating Russian sentries who were attempting to regroup. Within 90 seconds, the immediate perimeter defense was silenced. At the service hatch of the command bunker, demolition experts used 2 small thermobaric cutting charges to slice through the reinforced steel door. The team then entered the facility, where they were preceded by small UGVs that rolled ahead to secure the interior. One UGV, carrying a compact-shaped charge designed for a directed plasma detonation, positioned itself beneath a rack of server equipment. The ensuing detonation was channeled inward, sending a high-pressure cone of energy directly into the facility's power trunking. The command hall was engulfed in a shower of sparks as conduits, data lines, and encrypted communication links were instantly severed, plunging the bunker into darkness. In response to this assault, Russian strategic forces retaliated. A Tupolev Tu-95 bomber launched a salvo of Kh-101 cruise missiles toward the identified coordinates of the Ukrainian advance. However, before the missiles could reach their targets, they were intercepted and destroyed in the upper atmosphere by Iris-T air defense systems stationed beyond Chernihiv. The decapitation strike was a success. The S-300 complex was now functionally deaf and blind. The Russian military command scrambled a counterattack from a reserve line located less than 15 miles east of the engagement area. A formation of T-72B3M main battle tanks, supported by infantry in Ural trucks and Platform M robotic gun systems, began to advance westward. Simultaneously, Russian forces deployed trailer-mounted Burr multiple rocket launchers, which saturated the western edge of the Ukrainian foothold with unguided rockets, temporarily disrupting a drone relay station. The air domain also saw renewed conflict as a pair of Su-35S multi-role fighters engaged the Ukrainian UAVs. By firing R-77 air-to-air missiles, they successfully destroyed one Leica drone, although a second missile was defeated by a decoy flare. Despite the intensity of this counterattack, Ukraine maintained the operational initiative. Its networked and layered defense allowed its forces to absorb the pressure. UGVs were repositioned to choke points. Rochelle Senator vehicles established defensive reverse slope positions, and drone teams were rotated with fresh assets. The chaotic environment, filled with urban clutter and electronic noise, favored the more agile and adaptable Ukrainian force. Russia's counterattack was powerful, but was ultimately reacting to outdated intelligence, unable to keep pace with Ukraine's networked operational tempo. In the final phase of the operation, a Ukrainian assault squad advanced on the primary radar-to-missile integration bunker. An M1A1 Abrams tank fired a 120mm high-explosive anti-tank, or HEAT, round directly into the reinforced entrance, cracking the blast doors. As smoke billowed from the breach, Leopard UGVs scaled the bunker's outer walls and deployed micro-grenades into ventilation shafts, disabling internal systems with concussive force. Ukrainian infantry then stormed the facility, encountering scattered and disorganized resistance. The remaining Russian personnel quickly surrendered. Notably, the engagement concluded with a deliberate act of restraint. Ukrainian medics were brought forward to provide treatment to wounded Russian conscripts, who were then disarmed and led away. As the remnants of the Russian garrison retreated north, Ukrainian UAVs relayed their coordinates to French-built Caesar self-propelled howitzers positioned 15 miles away. Precision artillery shells were used to contain the retreat rather than annihilate it. Russian soldiers who surrendered to Ukrainian patrols were escorted to medevac points. In under 90 minutes, the S-300 complex at Dolgoprudny, a key component of Moscow's northern air defense shield, was rendered inoperable. The strategic implication of this event is significant. The northern corridor into Moscow's airspace, once considered heavily defended, is now exposed. The operation demonstrated that a smaller, more agile and technologically integrated force can paralyze a larger, more static defense network through synchronized multi-domain strikes that target critical command and sensor nodes. The psychological impact of this breach in Russia's perceived security so close to its capital is likely to be as substantial as the material damage that was inflicted. The battlefield is constantly changing. For more detailed analysis of modern military tactics, technological advancements, and the strategic implications of operations like the one at Dolgoprudny, subscribe to our channel. Stay ahead of the narrative and understand the future of conflict by joining our community of strategic thinkers today.